Welcome to another episode of the Human Experience Podcast. This is your host, Eldin. Today's episode is sponsored by Formula EQ Academy, formulaeq.com. They are actually running a 2-day health reset retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30. It is actually a neuroscience-based theta rewiring experience, fully immersive, using as many of the five senses, the ultimate mind-body reset. You will get utilizing theta brainwave activation, guided meditations, breathwork, somatic therapy, healing, and EFT. Multi-sensory journey designed to reprogram limiting beliefs, heal trauma, and unlock peak potential. It's hosted by Preston Weeks, top global psychologist and the neuroscientist from London, Eldin, yours truly, the host of this podcast. So I am traveling from London, England, to partner up with Preston Weeks from Formula EQ Academy to host this 2-day health reset retreat. I will put all the information in the show notes about the event and about our sponsor. Looking forward to meeting you live in person at our 2-day retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30. Here we go. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Human Experience Podcast. This is your host, Eldin. As you know, I'm in London, England, and my host today is joining us from United States, Erik Frederickson. Erik's amazing. I've been following his work on social media for a while. We connected, and I thought this is the type of gentleman with his human experience who is ideal for my audience to share his human experience. So Erik Frederickson, he's a husband, father, and one of the top-ranked sober and mental health coaches in United States. With over a decade of coaching experience and more than 15 years in recovery from drugs and alcohol, Erik is certified sober coach, mental health coach, and life coach. And both him and his wife are both ordained ministers, travel around the country speaking and ministering in churches. So I'm very excited to hear your human experience, Erik, and I'd like to invite you. So welcome to the show, Erik.
Hey, thank you so much, man. It's good to be here. These conversations never get old.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I know we've had some conversations on social media and we have a bunch of, good friends that, we have in common. And I know you have been, sober for 15 plus years. And for me, I've never been a drunk. I drank alcohol socially, maybe once every 2, 3 months, I would have something. And then I realized there's no point. So 2.5 years ago, I decided, no more alcohol. There's no point. And I just decided cold turkey, I'm never going to drink alcohol again. And I've been to a bunch of weddings, parties, celebrations, and I just drink sparkling water. Or if I'm in a bar, I would have they have good quality gin, which has no alcohol. So I would have a gin and tonic, alcohol-free one, or I might have a small bottle of beer without alcohol, And so, but usually I just drink water. So I'd like to have
Yeah,
you.
I'll say this real quick to that. It's a wise decision, because even if someone maybe doesn't have the alcoholism or some dependency on it, well, I'll put it this way. The origin of the word alcohol is the word al-ghul. It's an Arabic word. The second half of that word, ghul, is where we get our English word for the word ghouls and goblins, right?
Mm,
It's the
I like that.
the the meaning of the original word al-ghul is a flesh-eating spirit.
Hmm.
It's literally why you still see at liquor stores it says spirits. So
Yes.
alcohol, I mean, it's one thing if somebody has a glass of wine once a week, on a Friday night or something. I get it. There's some people who just don't have a problem with it at all. They have half a glass of wine, don't even finish it. That wasn't me. And truthfully, it's not most people. Alcohol dependency, it really is something that just is going to distort us mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and is just horrible for us physically. I mean, the Surgeon General of the United States just released a report, which a lot of people already know, and there was already studies for it. This is alcohol is linked to 7 different kinds of cancer.
Yes,
So it's pretty
absolutely.
good to just steer clear from it.
Yeah, yeah, and also let's not sort of beat around the bush. It's a poison.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what it
it's
is.
it's a hazardous toxins, highest level of hazardous toxins, which, is been promoted as a feel good, as a party. The moment you say celebration or party, you associate, you see a picture in a movie in your mind, like drinking alcohol, having a good time. But the idea is like, as a neuroscientist, it's what does it actually mean? Let's unpack having a good time. It's a feelings of body and brain producing these happy hormones, endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, and you actually generally feeling you in your default state, which is your state of inner peace, balance, homeostasis. So you had a bad day, you had a stressful day, something happened at work or maybe at home, and so you naturally know that that state doesn't feel good. So you associated alcohol or drugs or some exogenous substance with bringing yourself back, your state into parasympathetic nervous system. So self-regulating your nervous system. But you keep opting for these substances to be able to come to your default state, which is, your parasympathetic nervous system, where everything is in homeostasis. But I say to people, there is no need for you to have substances. First, you got to educate yourself, understand how your biology and physiology works, and then say, what are the things that I can do which give me the same results, regulate my nervous system without the side effects?
And that's it. The side effects, because we were talking before we started recording for a second, and I was telling you how like I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't have some fun with all my craziness back in the day. But it's all fool's gold. It's all counterfeit, because the quote fun we think we're having, first of all, doing all that stuff with people, they're really probably not your friends. They're
No.
acquaintances that are seeking the same escape. We call them friends. And then on top of that, you just get sicker and sicker. You just need
Yeah.
more and more and more of it. And then all of a sudden there's no fun left. The fun is long, long gone. And now you're dependent upon it just to get that escape, to get that feeling for a second. And it just usually just the way I describe is it gets its hooks in. And then
Mhm.
it becomes real tough to get those hooks out, because now you're dependent upon it for a feeling. You're
Yeah.
dependent upon it to escape, when you don't need to live that way. Alcohol is it's the most socially accepted drug, and it is a drug by
Yes.
literal definition in the dictionary. It is a drug, and it's the most socially acceptable, and it's also the only drug where people are like look at you weird, like you don't if you're not drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean you're not going to have a drink?
Yeah,
Imagine people doing that with heroin. You walked into a party, everyone's doing heroin. You're like, no, I'm good. They're like, really? You're not going to try some heroin?
what's
Well,
wrong with you?
alcohol is a drug and can take you to the exact same places eventually that heroin can. I've seen it with too many people to count. In
Absolutely.
living free from it's just a much better way of living. It's just a much better way of
Yeah.
living.
Yeah, yeah. It's you have all your senses. You actually don't have that hangover, the brain fog. And also, if you think about it, I think, when we say cost, what are the costs and what are the benefits? The Not drinking alcohol, the benefits outweigh the cost. And I'm not just talking about financial cost, I'm talking about the cost to
Sure.
your mental health, to your physical health, to your important relationships, to having good relationships with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, with your children, if you have children, or having an opportunity and health to actually produce children, because there is a lot of peer-reviewed science that if you have been consuming alcohol in your younger years, I'm talking about, you get so drunk the wheels fall off, you don't remember anything the next day, and most people, they drunk themselves, to that level, kind of college days and later on in the early 20s and maybe even early 30s. Highly likely that your system will not function at the optimal level for you to be able to bear children. If you're a woman or if you're a man, your sperm count will be so low and your testosterone will be so low that you will not be able to have children. If you do have children, they might have some ailments because that's all passed down to, and so the cycle kind of continues. So you just literally, you are destroying in your life before your life even began.
Yeah. Yeah, that was me. It was a lot of my life. I mean, most people just get pulled into it before they even realize what's happening. You know, like if you start drinking at such a young age, you've maybe heard it's bad for you, don't do it. Steer clear from this, but you're not aware of all of the long-term side effects, what it's
No.
doing to you psychologically, physically, emotionally, mentally. You're not aware of all of that. And oftentimes there's so many people just get pulled into it and they're, in that, I call it like the carousel,
Yeah.
just they're in the vortex of it, they're in the grip of it, and it's too late. And that's what happened to me. I just got pulled into it at the age of, 13, 14. I got pulled into it. I grew up in a good home. There was no drugs or alcohol in the home. It was not modeled for me anywhere. I just wanted to fit in with the cool kids, I suppose, who I thought were the cool kids, right? And there was already this kind of underlying like discontent with life, and alcohol, drugs numbed that pain. All of a sudden, you hear people say like, well, drugs and alcohol is my problem. If I could just get rid of the drugs and alcohol, life's going to fall into like perfect order. No, drugs and alcohol is not.
Yeah, exactly.
Drugs and alcohol is not your problem. It's your solution. It's the solution where you're trying
what you are avoiding to deal with.
Exactly. The pain, trauma, some of that you may not even recognize is there at a young age, and it's not
mostly
your fault.
It's unconscious, isn't it? It's
And then all of a sudden, you're not even able to For me, I had moved. So we lived in California and we had moved to Utah when I was like 10. And I just immediately didn't like it. I didn't fit in. And all of a sudden, I don't fit in. And I'm uncomfortable in my own skin. Like, well, first of all, who's not at 11 or 12 years old?
Yeah.
But there was just this underlying discontent. And then drugs and alcohol came into my system. And all of a sudden, the storm quieted for a moment.
Because
I found my solution.
Because of the cool kids, isn't it? Because you felt out of place and you made some friends and these friends were doing that and it was like, I want to be cool like them. And you were like, yeah, let me, whatever they have, I'll have it.
Not even understanding what's going on. Got some of that in my system. The storm quieted for a minute and I just need this. If I just have this in my system, then I'm going to feel that peace and everything's going to be good, not even knowing the path I was heading down at the time at all.
Yeah, because that intrinsically, your nervous system feels amazing when it's in that state, and you were seeking that state. But, you were a kid, right? But then, the thing is, mostly adults listen to this show. Actually, it's mostly popular with people aged 35 to 45. And interestingly enough, my podcast is most of my listeners, 29%, 192 countries, 29% United States. And out of that, 60% California. So, most of my listeners and viewers are from United States. A lot of people
there. I think it's like 40 million roughly.
So yeah. So it's
a big place.
Big place, yeah. So you have, adults listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, even on Spotify. It's a video. It's like top 15 in the world for, ranked for the video podcast. So I say to people, look, know thyself. This is not a religious saying, even though where it comes from scriptures. Know thyself. What does that even mean? So unless you spend some time in silence and in solitude to really connect to your higher self, to who and what you really are, beyond the meat suit, beyond your name and surname, what is like 2 words parents gave you, maybe you have middle name, whatever. So all of those things are just labels. Your profession, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, I'm a life coach, I'm a neuroscientist, all the labels. But know thyself beyond all of those things. It's the truth of who and what you are. And when you are in silence and solitude, when you are praying with your eyes closed, you connect to that. When you meditate, you connect to what I'm saying, the real self. When you are listening to a good quality piece of music, which produces those endorphins and oxytocin and serotonin, the happy feelings and hormones in your brain and body, this is the real self. When you are like feeling so much love in your heart, when you are holding your newborn in your arms and you're looking at your child, that angel, like unpolluted by society, by anything, and when you observe how you are feeling, almost like an out of body experience, this is the real self. So you have to ask yourself a question: when do I actually carve up the time each day to actually connect to this self? Or am I always just busy like hamster on a hamster wheel and just go, 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 Or do I actually spend some time not to judge myself, but to evaluate, because, if you're doing any kind of job as a professional, you are always measuring and evaluating, so you know what not to do, what doesn't work, and so you can work on the things that they do work, and you can improve on those things. You should do that with yourself. You should carve up time, block time in your calendar, the self-care time, the prayer time, the meditation time, the spirituality time, the God time, whatever you want to call it, anything which gets you to actually do growth and evolution, to really feel in that homeostasis, in home, basically, that default state of unconditional love, gratitude, compassion, kindness, collaboration, unity, like one human being. Like, there's only one race, human race, right? That's why my podcast is called The Human Experience, because, it's scientific fact that we are the beings of light and energy, spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. That's why my podcast is called The Human Experience. So, the life is just going to get by, and you're going to end up, you are 60, you are 70, without ever experiencing your true nature.
Yeah, I was headed there. I was headed there. So from the age of, it was like 13, 14 to 26, it was nothing but chaos, drugs, alcohol, hospitals, jails, rehabs. I watched over 30 of my friends die. I didn't witness it right before my eyes, all of them, but just all around me: car accidents, suicide, freak accidents, all involving drugs and
Wow.
alcohol. And I moved to San Diego when I was 26, really to start over. The unfortunate thing is that more and more people are realizing this, but oftentimes this doesn't have to happen this way, but it does for most people. There has to be a rock bottom to actually start to look at yourself. It doesn't, you don't, this is what I tell my clients. It's real simple. Rock bottom is wherever you decide to put the shovel down. That
Yes.
hole might be 5 feet deep. You might dig that hole 50 feet deep. It's wherever you decide to stop digging. That's rock bottom. And
Yes.
unfortunately, a lot of the time, though, there has to be a bad experience, or things have to get bad enough where you say, okay, I better do something here. I better take a look at myself. This isn't working. And I had hit many of those. And at the age of 26 was really my last one. And then I moved out to San Diego. And I lived in San Diego for about 10 years. And that's where my journey started. And that's where I started doing what you're talking about. I would get up I started to get up every single morning really early, 5:30 in the morning. I would read, I would write, I would pray. I would go to a recovery meeting in the morning. And no one ever told me about this. I don't know. Like, no one, I loved writing. I'd been writing my whole life, but in terms of like sitting down and really spending time with God, journaling about how I'm feeling, going through a process of like forgiving myself, recognizing what my issues are. AA calls it like character defects,
Yes.
recognizing what those are and beginning to work on them. I don't know. No one ever told me that. I learned all that because my life got so bad I had to learn it and I had to start doing it. And I began to go on a journey, because it really is a journey. It's a
Yes.
process and a journey. I tell people there's no destination here. The
No.
destination is when you learn how to live at peace with yourself on a daily basis. My journey, I love Jesus. I'm a follower of Jesus. I really have kind of a distaste for religion myself. It kind of got shoved down my throat my whole life. God bless anyone who considers themselves religious. I'm not against any, I'm not trying to be against anything. But for me, the rules, regulations, do this, do that, or else, it never sat right with me. But when it started being shared with me about it's a relationship with God,
Mhm.
that changed my life. I'd never heard that my whole life. Being in church most of my life when I was young, because I had to. I'd never heard it talked about like that, never. And when it took life becoming a disaster and hanging out with a bunch of other people whose lives had become a disaster, who were desperate. And when I started hearing that, and I started hearing people talk about a relationship with God, and then working on myself and this reading, writing, journaling, praying on a daily basis, going out of my way to help other people, these simple things we begin to live by, and my life just began to be transformed rather quickly as well. And all of a sudden I was living in a new place, San Diego, which is, beautiful. But then also just a new place internally. All
Yeah.
of a sudden I was at peace,
Yeah, and
clarity.
it felt good, didn't it? And kind
Mhm.
of effortless, felt good, but also familiar, kind of unfamiliar, but also familiar, if you know what I mean. Because you've had different behavioral patterns for so many years, but when you started doing these new positive behaviors and giving unconditionally, contributing to community, it felt good, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
at
it
the
was a
same
game
time, you're like,
changer.
yeah, it was like, whoa, this is, but this is, you see, this is animalistic, intrinsic, how as humans we are wired. We are tribal creatures. We are designed to feel that state, to feel that compassion, kindness, empathy, to contribute without wanting anything in return. There is no I, there's only we. There is only like community. There is relationships with God, with community, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, with city, country, with the world, and this is what we truly are, and there's no borders on a map. They don't exist, they're just man-made. And this is actually all proven by science, including
Yeah.
quantum physics, epigenetics, neuroscience, and as in like the time and space, it's not linear, and it actually is man-made. It doesn't exist. You are in United States, thousands of miles away. I am here. So, according to the experiment called quantum entanglement and double slit experiment, those things, they don't exist. So you could be, we are, as humans, we are literally like a tuning fork, right? So if we are sending the vibrational frequency tune with our fork, the other humans, they have these invisible antennas they pick up on, so they might feel pain if they are energetically connected and they're 5,000 miles away. If I get pricked here, they will feel the pain in LA, they will feel the pain in San Diego. And this is also known by experiments with the musical instruments. They could be, in completely another country, and you pluck an instrument here, and it would be playing the same tune in another room or even in completely different country. It's when you start to understand all of these things from science, then you leave nothing to superstition, nothing to dogma, and you really begin to understand what they mean by we are all connected by this invisible web, by we are all one.
Yes, when I started my journey, I didn't know anything about neuroscience. It took some years before I started doing some reading and learning about that. But I can say this, looking back, that all of the things that begin to produce the feel good chemicals, so to speak, in our body, I was directed to do and did, and they worked. That you mentioned, we're community, the tribe, like we're wired for connection. We're hardwired for it. Our body operates at its most optimal level when we're connected to
Yes.
people. And again, when I first started my journey, I knew nothing about neuroscience, but I immediately got connected, and it immediately changed the way I feel. I learned this in my journey. So when we're isolated, you could probably share more detail on this, obviously, as a neuroscientist. When we're in isolation, our body is kicking up cortisol and adrenaline and stress hormones. And the first thing that those do when they begin to affect your psyche is convince you I'm better off this way. I'm
Yes.
better off when I'm in isolation, which just isn't true at all. We're so limited in our vision and our ability to do things when we're isolated. The interesting thing though, and this is why I say we're wired for connection, is that immediately when we're connected to people, our body starts to produce the oxytocin, endorphins,
Yes.
dopamine,
Yeah.
serotonin, these things.
Yeah.
And that what those chemicals do is immediately cancel out the stress hormones. The
Absolutely.
very thing that we need is connection. And
Yeah.
so when we get isolated, it becomes tricky. Our brain starts telling us it's better this way. Those people don't understand you. No, 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 no. You'll have more fun this way. And then as soon as you do the exact thing your brain's telling you not to do, which is get connected, all that goes away. And you realize I'm supposed to be connected. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be connected to people and to God. I'm supposed to feel good, right? The issue is not whether or not we're supposed to feel good or if we should. Or the issue is how we're going about to feel good.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the real key is how we're going about, because drugs and alcohol, they release the dopamine in your body. They release the serotonin.
But
Like
it's
it'll pump.
temporary.
It's temporary and it screws your whole system up and drains your reserves, and now all of a sudden your body can't produce it correctly unless you have the drugs and alcohol. Well, that doesn't produce it correctly
Yeah.
artificially,
Yeah.
but then you have to go through a process of some physical healing, emotional, what we're talking about. But you can get back to normal, so to speak, and now all of a sudden you're feeling good regularly without
And
needing any of that.
absolutely. And also, when you are consuming the exogenous substances, you are very seldom inspired, which is in spirit from, Latin or from Greek.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
I didn't know. Inspired. That
yeah,
makes perfect
it
sense.
actually means in spirit.
That makes
And
perfect sense.
so, the word enthusiasm or enthusiastic, that is
Yeah,
also
God
from
within.
Greek, and entheos, it's a
Mhm.
Greek word, God within. So the more you practice these exogenous substances or practice the kind of use those to uh, get your brain and body into feel good chemicals and that homeostasis, the more you dissociate from entheos, from enthusiasm, from God within, from spirit, from the more you dissociate with like the higher self, the real self. And it's kind of like you live in this dark place where majority of the times you are in the darkness. Even when you are consuming the substances, you might have like an hour here and there when you see a bit of light and there is a bit of like balance and inner peace, but eventually there is that down part, which is the next day when you, and even the sleep quality of your sleep isn't the real quality. You think because you are in that kind of induced state that you're gonna, you feel drowsy, you're going to have good sleep. But actually, they measured you don't have good quality sleep
No, you
because you
don't.
develop sleep apnea, you snore, you breathe through your mouth, you breathe shallow to your upper chest, never like the full breaths. And then you begin to develop other conditions because science has proven that you're supposed to be breathing through your nose most of the time, especially when you are sleeping. That's one of the ways they do it. I used to do it as well, mouth taping when I sleep, just for
I've
as
seen
an
people doing it.
experiment.
I've never done it, but I've seen it and heard people talk about it.
Yeah, as an experiment, right? And I was actually, there is a book called, which is kind of like a Bible on breathing, and it's called Breath. I mean, I'm not endorsing it. It's just like I read a lot of books, and if somebody's interested, basically, this gentleman, he's a journalist, and he got commissioned by a magazine to go and study deep divers, who hold their breaths for a long time, and without
Mm.
oxygen tanks, they go and do competitions around the world. So he traveled to Greece to investigate, and he just then traveled around the world for 15 years, and he actually identified that this is all like a lot of cultural stuff. It's not just the deep divers. So he investigated people in Amazon, the ancient tribes. He went in the United States, many kind of indigenous people and many tribes, and he found out that in the some of the cultures, they've had people like 7 foot tall, they've never been sick in their life, and they have like straight teeth, they don't ever go to see a doctor or take any medication. It's all because breathing through the nose or having these special breathing techniques that they practice every day. And even like when the mother is breastfeeding a baby, between the breath, between the feeding, she would put the fingers or hand on the baby's mouth so the baby doesn't take any breaths inhales through the mouth. So I was like, this is fascinating stuff. So I'm a teacher of various breathwork techniques myself, and my company certifies people. But so this is why, like, this is probably 3 decades of my research as well, traveling around the world, meeting all these people myself. But it's fascinating how something simple, like people think they are experts in breathing because they breathe every day, but there is a wrong way of breathing and there's a right way of breathing. And the wrong way will actually put you in a state of stress and will pump more, cortisol and adrenaline, and make you feel like you're being chased by a lion. And the other way of breathing is you're going to regulate your nervous system, and you're going to feel like, the parachute, the parasympathetic nervous system, everything is calm. And now you've got creative juices flowing in your brain, and you can actually deal with life challenges, and everything looks easy, it looks effortless.
Yeah, I've become, I suppose, more. I wrote that book down here. I'm a big reader. I'll probably read it at some point after I knock out the 3 on my desk here that I'm finishing. But I've become more and more open to the holistic approach to things. I do a cold shower, a cold plunge every day. I have an at-home sauna that I'm in 4 or 5 times a week. Sauna is amazing for your health. These are things that years ago I probably just would have laughed at, probably did laugh at, but now simple things like this and what sells me on it is when I hear that's what sold me on like cold plunge and sauna, is I begin to hear the science of it. And I studied it myself and I researched, and like one study with a sauna I saw, I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was like 60% of people that did it 3-4 days a week over the course of years. It was just part of their life. I think 60% of them, there was a decrease in like diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, just massive decrease.
Yes.
So this thing you're talking about with like breath, I've seen many people talk about it on podcasts. Navy SEALs do it. They put the tape on. They'll sleep with the tape on their mouth and only breathe through their nose. But I've never dug into the whole science part of it. So it's very interesting, man. I'm definitely willing to take a look at it.
Do you know what's fascinating? Listen to this. Yeah, it's in the book, but I tell you, and then I read articles, peer-reviewed science as well about it. As I said, for me, it's all about research. Show me the science, then I want to try it and to kind of verify if it actually is.
Show me the science, and then I'll do it.
And then I'll try and practice and give it a little bit of time to peer review myself. So, this is still hypothesis until I've tried it. Yeah. So give me 6 months, a year, and then I'll tell you, this is accurate. So this is what they did. They took a bunch of professional cyclists. They put them on the stationary bicycles, spinning bikes, and they put the measurements, like they put brain measurements, heart measurements. They put the mask on the oxygen mask to see like breaths in and out, all of that, right? And they said, okay, this is the task. For 10 minutes, we're going to close your nose. Now for 10 minutes, you breathe only through your mouth, and you do this exercise. 2 minutes warm up. Then after 2 minutes, you're going to have like a steady pace. And then the last 3 minutes steady pace. Then last 5 minutes, you push. Each minute you push harder and harder and harder. And they increase the resistance. And then they measured breaths per second, breaths per minute. They measure their heart rate, their brain waves, everything, right? Next, they said, you repeat the same thing, but we're going to tape your mouth. Now you breathe only through your nose. What they discovered, breathing through the nose, same exercise, is they reduced the breaths per minute by 58%. And also, their heart rate remained the same, the warm-up stage, the mid-stage, and the higher intensity. And they actually increased the intensity by 20%. So I said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm an avid, I go to the gym 6-7 days a week, and 2 or 3 times a week I go to a class, bicycle spinning class myself, right? It's like 45 minutes. So that's, I'm going to put this to the test, because I usually, the last bit of the class, which is more intense and you are standing kind of climbing, I would get out of breath, right? So I said, I'm going to force myself to just breathe through the nose. I would increase the intensity and I was never out of breath. And since that day, about 2 years ago, I just breathe through my nose. Even if I run very fast, I'm sprinting, I'm doing whatever, just through the nose, and has improved my performance.
It's interesting. You would think the opposite. Logically speaking, never having heard the science or tried it, you would think breathing through my nose is I'm going to get shorter breath, and it's going to decrease my oxygen. It's interesting.
It's very, yeah, like that's what I'm talking about. Like, logically you would think, but then when you put it into practice and you try it, it's like, oh my God. And actually the first couple of days I tried it, the brain was saying, what the heck? I was like, no. And actually I was breathing slower. I was going faster, higher, resistance on my bike, because you can tighten the knob, right? But I was actually breathing slower. I was almost like in a meditative state. It was incredible. And
the results of all that are in that book, you said?
it's
I would like
all
to
in
see.
here.
I would like to see what some of the science was on the amount of oxygen getting in your blood,
So
and
this
and
is the thing.
actually like the
It's not
heart
the
health.
oxygen. So this is the thing. It's not an oxygen. It's your lungs' capacity to regulate the CO2.
Mm,
It's nothing to do. So there is still same amount of oxygen in your system. It's your lungs' ability and capacity to release the oxygen and control not the oxygen, the CO2.
that's interesting.
And that's what it is. So when you do a breath hold, if you do the deep breaths, and there is a breath hold portion. I mean, I've got a friend who is a coach. He teaches the deep divers. Actually, two friends. One is in Belgium, one is in United States, in Utah. The one in Utah just recently coached a Croatian deep diver who's a world record holder. 23 minutes he can hold his breath.
Yeah,
The
I watched a
professional.
documentary of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
these tribal people that could do
Oh
it for
my God,
15 minutes and stuff, and
it's mad. It's
it's
mad.
crazy.
The Belgium coach, he can hold his breath for 8.5 minutes, and he used to kind of do some deep diving himself. The one in US, in Utah, he said he can does do it for 6 minutes, but he's a good coach. And it's fascinating stuff when you do the science. And I've been doing the ice baths and ice showers for 15 years, even before it became popular by Wim Hof. And so I've never, even in the winter, it's like minus below zero, and I'm doing my ice baths and ice showers is fine. And sauna, I do 20 minutes 5 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can get it on Amazon, a home sauna for like $150. That's not expensive. You
I,
could
I'm
get
I'm lucky. I live 5 minutes walk to my, I've got this like kind of fancy country club, health club,
That's
where we live.
perfect.
It's
Yeah.
like 5 minutes walk.
You,
And
you can you
so,
could get these things for pretty inexpensive and do them just about daily at your house. And I was the
yeah,
same way. I mean, I started doing it when I saw the trendy stuff with it, but then I
you see the
studied the
benefits now.
science.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the benefits are absolutely undeniable, absolutely undeniable. And I began to study the science, and then I did it. I was like, all right, you convinced me, and then I did it, and then I was like, all right, this is just part of my life now, constantly. Mm.
But what we need to discuss here, delve deeper and unpack. Okay, so we talked about a lot of amazing things, and your life, your journey, but I want to delve deeper into your why. What inspired you to be where you are, and what's inspiring you now to become a scientist in your own life and to keep doing all these positive things? There is something which is driving you, and you have the not destination, but you have a strong, compelling why. Can we delve and unpack this, please?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's a really good question. For me, one of the biggest things was I just knew I had way more potential in life, and I knew I was never going to access it. I kept trying. I was trying, and I was able sometimes during addiction to kind of muster up some success for a minute, get a little bit of momentum. I wrote for a couple of newspapers. I made music, and made hip hop, and made a few albums, and had multiple colleges wanting me to come play college football, and I had these opportunities here and there, and I knew I had some talents and way more potential, but I couldn't access any of it. Not with the drugs and alcohol. It was never, ever, ever going to happen. And I just knew there's no chance. First of all, when I hit rock bottom, my external circumstances had been much worse multiple times. But when I finally was at my lowest, it had never been worse internally. Just the depression and just out of
Wow.
energy, just the darkness, all of it. And so I just knew. So there was that was motivating me, was how bad things had gotten. But I just knew that I just knew I had way more potential. I could capitalize on way more. And so, and I also knew that I was never going to ever be able to access it doing what I was doing. I had friends that had gone on their own recovery journey, and I knew that it was a process. I knew this, like, oh, it takes the drugs and alcohol away in a week, my life will be perfect. No, it won't. No, there's some work that needs to be done. There's a journey that
Journey,
needs
yes.
to go on. And I finally just got to the place where I was like, I'll do it. I'm gonna do this because I'm gonna die, or at best end up in prison for something ridiculous. So I'm gonna, and I didn't want that, and was lucky, God was watching over me. Lucky circumstances, whatever. I didn't die or go to prison, um, and I began to just face myself. I began to go on that journey, like I said, in San Diego, and when I began to experience the freedom and see the transformation really come about in my own life, then one of the things that really, really kept me motivated was knowing there is a way out, and there's millions of people stuck in this thing, and they don't think there's a way out. And so the why initially was, I know that I'm capable of way more, and I'm never going to access it living like this. Never. It'll never happen. And then in experiencing some freedom, there's the of course the remembering, anyone's capable of going back to it.
Yeah.
Anyone's susceptible of going back to it. And don't think, no matter how healthy you're living, or how many years of recovery you have, or how much you've achieved in your recovery, or whatever, you're capable of going back to it. I promise. If I continue doing what got me to this point, I'll stay in a pretty good place, and chances are I won't go back to it. But I'm capable of it. Anybody is capable of going back if they stop. But again, once I experienced the freedom, then so much of it became about, continuing to doing what I'm doing to not go back, but then also helping people out of it. That has always been a very big why. And initially, it just was like, I went to AA for about the first year and a half of my journey. I've stopped going. I'm still an advocate for it. I still practice, so much of everything that's talked about and living. I'm doing everything
The
that is
12
done.
steps, yeah? The 12
Yeah,
steps.
I still incorporate a lot of that. I still live in community, in around people constantly. So I'm still doing all the same things. I just don't do it in AA anymore. But I'm a big advocate for it. I think, especially early on, I think it
Oh,
really,
yeah,
really
early
can
on it's very
help people.
helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things in there is the 12th step is carrying the message, basically being of service and helping other people. And I
Yes.
just, for lack of a better way to put it, I became addicted to it. So I hated people, quite literally hated people, hated myself, and hated people. I go through this transformation, a relationship with God, now recognizing the presence of God inside of me, and following Jesus, not religion. There is a difference. We maybe don't
Yes.
have the time to dive into it all, but there's a big difference.
I
But
know the
following him,
difference. Yeah.
mhm. Following him, his whole life was about helping people. It was service and laying down his life for others. And I grabbed a hold of enough of that and started to do it, and started to, in just so many different ways, serving other people. And I became kind of addicted to it. The feeling that you get when you're helping people, and
Yeah.
helping people out of the mess that they think there's no way out of, but there is a way out of it. And I began doing it for free in my free time. And over the years, it just picked up and developed, and more of it. And it was so it would have been about 5 years into my recovery journey. Then I started coaching.
Okay.
Then I started working with people one on one. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years.
Amazing.
But to sum it all up and repeat myself, the why initially was, I'm going to die, and I know I'm capable of
And
more.
yeah, yeah.
And then it became about, okay, I don't want to go back there. and then also the compassion, just helping people who are just so stuck
and
in
and
something.
and witnessing the transformation with your guidance, with your help, obviously that keeps you motivated.
Yeah,
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 kind of like
working one on.
I can't let them down. I can't let myself down. People need me. Community needs me. So I'm no longer just doing it for me. I'm doing it for everyone, right? And I'm
Yeah.
curious, when you were in the very dark place, did you already know your wife and had family, or did this came about later?
No, yeah, no. I couldn't maintain a relationship with anybody when I was stuck in addiction. Nobody. No, I met my wife about let's see, it would have been about 6 years into my journey. We've been
Okay.
married
Okay.
for over 9 years now. Three boys. From my
Amazing.
wife, Brazilian, beautiful, born and raised in Brazil, moved here. English is her second language. She speaks it fluently and everything. But from the day we met, she came to one of my workshops and I was speaking, and we met. And
And
from the
love at
day,
first sight, right?
pretty much from the day we met to the day we got married was 2 months. And
Amazing.
then we, for about 9 months and 5 days later, after the day we got married, we had our first son, and we've
Wow.
had two other boys now, and so yes, happily married with
That's
three little
incredible.
boys. That was not going to come about with me
I
little
saw one
boys
of your
never.
posts, staying sober. This is my why. And you were pointing the arrow to your family, to your kids,
Yeah.
and you were like, what is yours?
Hmm.
Staying like, sober, doing positive things in your life, in your world, what is your why? I think it's a great post because it makes people, introspect, and it resonates with people because, people seldom pause to say like, "Hey, what is my why? Why do you do what you do?" And I think today everything you've explained what is your why, but I think also all these new things that you are experimenting for your mental health, for your physical health, for your longevity, for creating, making a bigger impact, is also your family is what is driving you. Because I know, even from your introduction, as in your bio, I'm a husband and a father, and then everything else. Usually people will be like, yeah, they will list all the accolades about their profession, and then somewhere lost in the bottom it will be, I'm the father and a husband. But for you, clearly I can see that's your priority number one, is your family.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Initially when my journey began, of course, I wasn't married and didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
kids. That took place a few years, some years into the journey. But yeah, it is. And your whole world changes. So it changes quickly when you get married, right?
Hmm.
But then it's like steroids when you have kids. It's like
Yeah,
you lay down your life in a whole new way. My life is not about me. It
yeah,
can't be all about me. I got a
yeah, yeah.
wife and three
Your
kids that depend
priorities
on me.
change. Your
Oh yes,
priorities change.
quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Whether you're ready, prepared for it or not. Yeah, they
Yeah,
just, yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
it's wise to prepare yourself, talk to
Yes, if you
people,
can,
read a
yeah,
book. Yeah,
yeah,
but you can't get fully prepared. You get prepared by
yeah.
doing it.
And
That's when you
oh
realize
my
what's.
God, how much you learn about being patient.
Oh
But
yes,
patience, you get tested every day, maybe thousands of times a day. You get tested. Like literally, universe is testing you through your kid,
especially when you have little
through your
boys, little
2-year-old,
kids. Yes.
through your
Hmm.
toddler, through your 2-year-old, and then it's like everything is a why. Why? You give an answer, why? And you just take a deep breath and you say, okay, this is universe testing me. I'm here to learn something. What am I here supposed to learn?
Yeah, kids ask fascinating questions, really
Yeah.
good questions sometimes. Where you're just like, because they think you know everything. You're
Yeah,
the father.
exactly.
Like, oh my gosh, my dad knows everything. I
Yeah.
wish, but they'll ask questions sometimes, and I'm just kind of stumped. I'm like, yeah, I don't have the answer to that one. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'll have to look into that one for you. They ask the why behind everything.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
like,
talked about. Go
go
ahead.
on. No, I was going to say, like, my son loves vehicles, loves cars. So we would look at the engine, and and I explained, like, sort of superficially what the engine is and how engine works. And he would ask why. And then I said, Daddy will tell you. I don't actually know, but we can find out together. Or I flip it. When it gets too much for me, I flip it and I said, why do you think that is?
That's good.
So I kind of like get him to engage and say, why do you think? Can you give me your opinion? Because your opinion about this is valid. and maybe I can learn something. Can you teach me? So then kind of we get out of the loop of why million times.
Oh yeah, you're gonna learn from your kids if you're paying attention. You can't not. You mentioned the patience things too. My wife's first language is Portuguese,
Okay.
and she speaks English fluently now. But there's just little words, little communications. You know what I mean? And sometimes she'll just say something, and it's not exactly what she means. But that's what was said. So I'm taking it what was said. And early on there was some communication back and forth, not because she didn't speak fluently, again, just the little details of what word to mean. And so early on I had to learn to be very patient and be like, okay, this is what you said, is that what you meant? This is what, and I had to be very, very patient in communicating.
Yeah.
It really strengthened our marriage. And also it just helped me be a lot more patient across the board with people. Because you if you're going to respond to someone correctly, you really truly need to understand what they said and what
Yes.
they meant. And then once you understand it, and so it helped me be a lot more patient and understanding, which I certainly have not mastered. I've gotten better. I don't know if I've mastered it, but the more patient that I am in understanding, the more better communication goes, not just with my wife and kids, just with
Oh,
anybody.
absolutely. The appropriate listening skill is actually a skill set.
Oh, yes.
And most people listen through their inner narrative, almost like through their inner filter, and they
Mhm.
interpret what you are saying rather than genuinely understanding as you described it by asking questions and could you elaborate for me. So for me, if I'm actually, when somebody tells me something and I'm not understanding, I say, can we unpack this? Can we delve deeper? Can you elaborate? And it's because the reason why they're telling me what they're telling me is not for me. It's not for me as a recipient, it's for them. They want to share. And obviously, we're doing a similar job. We talk to people and we need to unpack their emotions and their darkness and all sorts of things through the healing journey. So it kind of comes with the job. But then there are times that we experience, some miscommunication in other relationships, not just working with our clients. So it's very important, as you said, to be patient and ask questions for whoever is talking to you to elaborate what they are saying so you can genuinely. And then I ask a question, is this what you meant?
Yes.
To confirm, and they say yes, exactly. And then I say, okay, now I'm following. So it's about, I gotta follow what they mean, what they are saying, so I can follow the journey, follow the story. Otherwise, things get lost in translation, even if you English is your first language, you know
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
100%.
very it's a learned skill set, I would say.
I would agree. And oftentimes even with my clients, I'm asking questions, and basically I'm trying to just get them to like think out loud and kind of externally process, because I kind of look at my job when I'm working with clients as like, I want to lead you into answering your own question.
Absolutely.
I want to lead you into, so this is your question, and now I want to, through me asking you questions, lead you into getting the answer for your own question, and then giving you practical guidance and insight on how to develop it and live in even more freedom. But I'll do the exact same thing and asking questions, kind of repeat back. I'll be like, so this is what it sounds like you're saying, quick summary, da 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 da. I'll be
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm saying, okay, then we move on, because you
Yeah.
do want to truly hear what they're saying, but really understand what they're saying as
Yeah.
as well. Mhm.
And what I do in a lot of my programs, one-on-one group or even the workshops, I actually get them to experience that a lot of things they're saying is made up, is just blatant fictitious, is lie.
Mhm.
And they're like, you're right. So I said, if we take all of those things away, what are you? Who are you? Wow. Because, often people get into that world of complaining, blaming, living in guilt, resentment, unforgiveness, and all of that. And it's just a narrative, it's just a story. When you take those things away, and then obviously there's so many different ways I get into. But one part that I love the most is when I ask them a question. Can you remember the time in your adulthood or in your childhood when you were the happiest, when you had big belly laughs. Could be maybe you were 7 years of age. Can you remember that time? And I said, if it helps you, maybe you close your eyes and they just go there. Because they can remember, because you are not telling them, you're asking them to connect to the memory of the big belly laughs where the ribs were hurting. It's almost like I broke a rib because I was laughing so much. And they go there. And then you ask them, how did it feel? Describe to me, where are you? Who are you with? You get them to involve as many of the five senses. And then you say, what if we can be in that state permanently for the rest of your life? Now, 2 years from today, 5 years from today, you are that person. What if we can? That'll be amazing. And then
It's good.
I develop a blueprint together with them to get them between where they are now to actually have that experience for the rest of their life. And that's the key. And I say to them, that's your anchor point. And I ask them to record a voice recording, video recording, to journal, to actually use that experience of maybe a 7-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever, um, and actually then create it as a first person script so they can visualize. And anytime they feel a bit out of, the life knocked them off of the horse, they go to that recording, they go to that video, they go to that journaling, to that script, and this is your new life. This is our destination. So we are now on the journey to be there. And it's very powerful because you go into emotions. The language of the subconscious mind, it's emotion. The subconscious mind doesn't understand logical thinking, doesn't understand the words. If there are no emotions involved and you're not changing emotions, it actually doesn't go into the subconscious mind. There's no reprogramming happening.
I have a friend, she's an educator of neuroscience, and she talks a lot about that, how our memories are attached to emotions, but also getting the feel good chemicals to be released in our body are also attached to
Yes.
emotions as well. It's funny you were talking about it as well, just the amount of lies we believe. And there's this quote that I love from Mark Twain. He says, I'm an old man now, and I've known a great many fears, most of which never happened. And it's so true that so much of the stuff that we, because what worry is meditation. You just meditate on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so if someone's good at worrying, well, at least you know how to meditate. Just switch what you're meditating on. Just
Yeah.
switch what you're filling your mind on.
You're good at affirming, so you're good at affirmations, you're good at meditating, right? So and you're good at law of attraction. So you're expert on all three.
Yeah. Now
It's
just
just
switch what you're meditating on.
exactly. It's like, oh, affirmations don't work. No, actually they do. Because what are your outer circumstances? What are your experiences? Where do they come from? There was a seeds you planted. Each time you have this inner monologue, which is negative, that, I'm inadequate, I am not loved, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, and da 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 da. Blame and guilt and, insecurity and unforgiveness and blaming the government, blaming everybody. For my circumstances, I'm a victim, and repeating that, learned helplessness story, you are just reaffirming. Basically, you are doing affirmations. You are just, and then you say, well, I actually want to have better quality of life. I want to have all these things. I want to have money, success, happiness, health, love, marriage, everything, right? But it's eluding me for the last 15 years. Well, the reason why it's eluding you, you've never actually addressed the root cause of who was creating those. And I said, well, if you say, I am responsible, and then, as you say, you change the narrative, change the story, change your affirmations, your meditation, your internal monologue, then, you begin to have different experiences in your outer circumstances.
It's the truth. There's Proverbs. There's a proverb says, "Death and life's in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat its fruit." And essentially, what it's saying is, what you speak about, you're going to bring about.
Yeah.
If you're
And
constantly speaking about worry and fear and stress, well, you're gonna attract that into your life. And so that's why it's very important to be aware of what you're thinking about. Be aware of it and do the work you need to do to switch those thoughts up, because you're going to speak about, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. You're going to speak about what you're thinking about. There's this quote. I love this quote. I heard a guy say, says, if you watch what you think, you don't need to watch what you say.
Yes.
If you're aware of what you're thinking, then you don't need to be, I need to be careful what I say here. No, I don't. I know what I'm thinking, and what's in my heart is going to come out of my mouth. And so filling my mind with the right things is very, very important. It's the fuel that runs the ship.
And also what you are feeling as well, because as a neuroscientist, I would tell you there is a heart in the brain with 40,000 neurons, independent nervous system. And actually, the thoughts that we are experiencing in the brain that we become aware of, they come from the heart. So it's the feelings, the language of the heart, the vocabulary of the heart is the feelings and emotions. The language of the brain is the thoughts and thinking. So actually, there is 100 times more signals from the heart to the brain than vice versa. So this brain here, and so we get influenced by our behaviors, by our thoughts. But where did that come from? It was the feelings in the heart. So you have to make sure that you are in alignment. So the quote, it's great, the one you shared, but it's missing link. It's the feelings have to be in alignment. So two have to marry as one, the feeling and the thought. And if you can deliberately create the feelings and the thoughts which are in alignment and which are deliberate and positive to create your outer circumstances, then you actually are in a driving seat and you are creating and co-creating your life. Life doesn't just happen to you. And when people are out of alignment, the thinking is like, I want this, but then their emotional state, the dominant signal is, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to be able to do this, it's impossible for me. I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, right? And they're gonna actually experience what a heart feels and what the heart is sending as a signal to the brain, even though you want all these amazing things. But I want to ask you, there is a powerful quote, and I want you to kind of give me the definition and delve a little bit deeper, and then a couple more questions, and we have come into kind of towards the end of the recording. Heaven on earth is... It's the same from the Jesus and from the scriptures.
Sure.
Heaven
Pray
and
on
earth
earth as it is in heaven. I mean, I would look at it as, so if we're going to reference it, so I would look at it as, so obviously there's going to be miracles involved in that. There's going to be miracles that take place. And on top of that, I would look at it as the fruit of the Spirit. So if you look at Galatians 5:22 and 23, I don't have it that here. Give me 10 seconds, okay? Because I don't have it memorized and I'm going to butcher it, and I want to make sure I'm reading it right here. I would look at it as this, as love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control.
Amazing. And where is that? Where is that situated?
Where's it at in the Bible? Galatians 5:22 and 23?
Or you just named all the emotions. Where are they situated?
Well, they have to start within us. We got to learn how to.
You just said it. Heaven on earth is within us.
Absolutely, that's exactly where it's at. It's when I was living in addiction, there was a reality living inside of me, and it was dark, and it was chaotic, and it was depressed, and it was anxious, right? When I start following God, now there's a different reality that's alive inside of me. It doesn't mean I'm not susceptible to stress and worry. I have to be aware of this. Yeah. And I have to learn what I'm focusing on, what I'm meditating on, what I'm zeroing in on. But now there's a different reality. Right? What's that? Awareness.
Absolutely. You just said it.
There's a different reality that's alive inside of me now. And it's that one right there. That's what's available. That's what's available to someone who may not even be able to think they can't access it, or isn't living in that reality. It's still available to you. But now it's more just the reality. It's the culture that I live in. And when I wake up every day and start my day the right way and stay at that place of peace, connected to God, and then going about my day helping people, it's a place we can dwell in. I can abide in that place there.
Precisely. But as I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's a scientific fact that this is our human default state.
We're wired for that. Hardwired for it. Mhm.
Well, this is it. This is it. And actually, they are known as heart-centered emotions. So our default state is heart-centered emotions, which are unconditional love, compassion, kindness, empathy, confidence, collaboration. So everything else, all the other, emotions in the spectrum, imagine there is like a spectrum of colors, right? Your muddy brown is your anger, resentment, guilt. And all your vibrant colors are, your gratitude, your appreciation, your thankfulness, these are all in a higher, but also it's actually measured as a vibrational frequency. Even Stephen Hawking and other scientists, this is all science. It's not like some woo-woo stuff. So it's identifying that, there's your default state. And if I'm not in a default state as human, what can I go in my toolbox to access to actually, whether it's reading, journaling, praying, going for a physical exercise, eating a healthy food, meditating, having a good quality sleep, having, some self-care routines, whatever that looks like, playing with your kids, listening to some nice music, positive music, whatever that looks like, helping a neighbor. Maybe there is an elderly neighbor who cannot go to the pharmacy to pick a prescription. So you knock on the door, can I buy you some groceries? Doing all these positive deeds is actually getting you into that state of love, compassion, kindness, your default state. So it's incredible how, when you simplify it, how easy it is actually to go back home.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. When we're giving of our time, energy, resources for to help people, there's a return on that investment.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
and just like you said, the peace, joy, um, self-control. Hmm.
Yeah. Now, before we go, where can people find you? What is your social media handle? And if they want to find out more about your work, are there any offerings, any courses, any programs, one-to-one coaching? Where can people access that?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing it up. So at Recovering Reality, Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm on Facebook as well, but Instagram is definitely where I'm most active at Recovering Reality. My website is recoveringreality.com. I do most of what I do. I do a lot of different group things. There isn't a constant one going. I usually get the word out, advertise about it through my Instagram when I am doing one. But most of what I do is the one-on-one coaching. And we just begin to work with people for an hour a week and work with them for a season. Most of the people I work with, it is people struggling with addiction, but not everybody. There's other
Okay.
people that I work with as well that'll come to me if they're just maybe already in recovery, but are really in a space where they're struggling, or just their mental health is just all messed up and they're depressed and anxious and self-worth and all of that. I work with the people experiencing a lot of that as well. And then another is my book, Recovering Reality. Can't see it as blurred out there, but Recovering Reality: Freedom from the Torment of Addiction. It was the number one bestseller on Amazon in a few different categories for some weeks.
Amazing.
And you can find it on Amazon. Recovering Reality: Freedom from the Torment of Addiction. What I do is I tell my story, but I'm just using my story to talk about something much bigger. And I
Yeah.
talk about a lot of the neuroscience, emotions, what's going on psychologically, spiritually. And I use my story again to talk about the journey I went on, what takes place when someone is stuck in the midst of addiction, the transformation, the process of breaking free from it, and then what it looks like to continue that process and really live free from it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Mm.
We'll put everything in the show notes. We'll get all the links and put as many links as
I
possible in the
appreciate
show
that.
notes so people can connect with you easily. Now, before we go, what's the impact you would like to have on humanity while you are here?
Oh, that's a big question. We could probably do a whole nother episode on it. I mean, if the living a leg, so first and foremost, dying, having lived a long, happy life with my wife, um, my boys all growing up to be productive members of society that love God and love people and are accomplishing things and reaching the potential. And then my impact on the, the masses, the greater population, so to speak, would just be how many people did I help break free and step into their own potential? And there's so many different things. We have tons of different online resources through YouVersion or through my YouTube channel or Instagram, my book, some ebooks, lots of different things. You can access a lot of it through the website, and so you can touch people through online, but then also just our impact with people that we're in connection with and walking, doing life with. The more people that I can help break free from the darkness and live in the light, and then also them go and do the same to others. So multiplying, I can touch someone and they can go
Pay
touch
it
10,
forward, yeah?
and they can go touch 10, and they could go touch 10
Yeah,
people, and multiplying through that. I can't change the world by myself, but I can
absolutely.
make an impact. I can certainly make an impact.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Our missions align, and my listeners and viewers, they know. Mine was 100 million people like a couple of years ago. Then it changed to 1 billion people around the world to make positive impact. And obviously it's through collaborations, through all my work that I do, my books and articles and live events and corporate training and all the stuff that I do. But yeah, you got to have this mission and strong compelling why. And your strong compelling why is your family, your children, your wife, your clients, your community, and it's just being of service to humanity. It's almost like I speak about this to a lot of people. It's like you are being used as a conduit, as a channel to channel all this goodness through you to be of service to humanity. It's like, yeah, literally you're doing God's work.
Mhm. Yeah, I was a conduit for a lot of problems and chaos.
Oh
Now I'm a
well, listen.
now I'm a conduit for something much, much different. Hmm.
Yeah, but
Yes.
there was a different approach to life. It was selfish and selfless.
Oh yes.
Do you see what I'm
Hmm.
trying to say?
Hmm.
So people think selfless is where unhappiness happens. Actually, it's the other way around. The more you are of service, you are actually contributing. From my cup is so full and overflowing that I've got so much to contribute, so much to give. You know,
Absolutely.
and
Hmm.
it's infinite amount of unconditional love and happiness and joy. And when you go out there and you contribute from this place, the money is just a byproduct. It's inevitability.
Yeah, the source never runs dry. When I'm trying to operate in my own strength, or again my past life when it was darkness, that source is very limited. But this when you're giving and helping people, loving your family, loving people, well, the source it never runs dry. There's
Absolutely.
no end to it. It's unlimited. Hmm.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Erik. It has been an absolute honor. We can talk for another month,
Probably, yeah.
probably, if not even longer.
Yeah.
And we both love what we do. We love humanity. We love to be of service. Our missions align. And I think this is the mission of the entire humanity. When you delve deep into the source, this is what we are made out of, the love and light, those biophotons, that emit light. We can't see it with the naked eye, but we know it's there. The science has confirmed it. And also, the heart and the brain, they emit electromagnetic, magnetical, energetical charge, and which is felt thousands of miles away. But we also are receivers as well as emitters. And, you just got to ask yourself, is my frequency, did I tune into the right radio station? What am I emitting? What am I contributing to the quantum field, to the universal consciousness, to the collective consciousness each time I'm thinking, each time I'm feeling? Because you're actually not only impacting every single atom in your own life, but you also of the entire planet Earth and everyone who lives on this beautiful planet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We certainly are created and hardwired for connection and love. That's when we're going to function at our most healthy, clear, optimal self. Having experienced the opposite and
Yeah,
now experiencing this for many years, I can say this is where we're really created to function in is this space here.
absolutely. Well, thanks once again. And I'm looking forward to airing this podcast with everyone. And I'm very excited for everyone to see it.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Eldin, thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for what you're doing.
Today's episode is sponsored by Formula EQ Academy, formulaeq.com. They are actually running a 2-day health reset retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30. It is actually a neuroscience-based theta rewiring experience, fully immersive, using as many of the 5 senses, the ultimate mind-body reset. You will get utilizing theta brainwave activation, guided meditations, breathwork, somatic therapy, healing, and EFT. Multi-sensory journey designed to reprogram limiting beliefs, heal trauma, and unlock peak potential. It's hosted by Preston Weeks, top global psychologist and the neuroscientist from London, Eldin Hassa, yours truly, the host of this podcast. So I am traveling from London, England, to partner up with Preston Weeks from Formula EQ Academy to host this 2-day health reset retreat. I will put all the information in the show notes about the event and about our sponsor. Looking forward to meeting you live in person at our 2-day retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30.